In the gleaming skyscrapers of New Eden, a quiet revolution was brewing. Elijah Kane, known by his handle Ellie, sat hunched over his laptop, eyes narrowed as he pored over lines of code. The neon lights of the city reflected off the polished surface, casting an otherworldly glow on his intense focus. Neurosphere's memory storage algorithm hummed through the network like a high-performance engine, fueling the virtual worlds and fantasies of millions. But Eli had detected something, a hidden vulnerability that could upend it all. The more he probed, the greater the potential for manipulation grew. It was as if the entire system was waiting to be exploited. As his fingers danced across the keyboard, an idea began to form in Eli's mind like the first drops of a storm brewing on the horizon. What if this flaw could be used to create infinite echoes of memories? The market would flood with duplicates, devaluing the precious commodity and destroying Neurosphere from within. The irony was delicious. A beep from his computer interrupted his thoughts. He glanced up at the screen, an encrypted message from an unknown sender. "Meet me tonight in the abandoned warehouse on 5th and Pine," it read. Eli's grip tightened around the mouse as he wondered who would send such a cryptic invitation, especially given the sensitive nature of his discovery. His mind raced with possibilities as he made up his mind. He'd take the risk, curious about what this mystery contact could want in return for their information. It might be exactly what he needed to turn his idea into reality. That night, under the cover of darkness, Eli arrived at the warehouse. The dimly lit space echoed with the distant hum of machinery and whispered secrets of New Eden's forgotten past. A figure emerged from the shadows, a young woman with striking features and an air of intensity that matched Eli's own rebellious spirit. "Kai," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "what are you doing here?" She paused for a moment, studying his face intently. "You're not just browsing online forums anymore, are you?" Her eyes scanned him before settling on his laptop. "You've discovered something." Ellie's heart pounded as he realized Kai had been onto him all along. He decided to play it cool, hoping she wouldn't sense the panic rising within him. "Just some interesting programming techniques," he said with a shrug. But before he could change the subject further, Kai stepped closer, her voice dropping into a conspiratorial whisper. "I know what you're working on. The Echo virus." A chill ran down Eli's spine as he met Kai's gaze. "How did you? You've been leaving digital breadcrumbs all over Neurosphere's network." Her eyes gleamed with excitement and intrigue. "I couldn't help but follow them to where they led, to your brilliant, subversive plan." For a moment, the two of them stood there in silence as Eli tried to process Kai's words. Then he felt an unexpected spark of camaraderie, understanding that she shared his disdain for Neurosphere and their ruthless exploitation of memories. "Do you want in?" he asked, extending an invitation that could potentially change both of their lives forever. Kai's eyes widened as she considered Eli's proposition, her mind racing with the implications. She had always been drawn to the thrill of hacking, the intellectual challenge of outsmarting the system. But this was different. It was bigger than any individual act of defiance. It was a full-blown rebellion against the very foundation of their society. "I'm in," she said finally, her voice steady and determined. "But we need to be careful. If Neurosphere discovers what we're planning." She let the thought trail off, knowing that Eli understood the stakes as well as she did. Eli nodded, a fierce grin spreading across his face. "I've already taken precautions. The virus is designed to spread quickly and autonomously, so once it's unleashed, there's no turning back." "I like your style," Kai replied with a smirk of her own. She reached out and clicked the mouse on Eli's laptop, bringing up the code for the Echo virus. As they delved deeper into the programming details, time lost all meaning in the abandoned warehouse. The neon glow of the laptop screen illuminated their faces as they pored over lines of code, debating optimization strategies and making last-minute tweaks to ensure maximum impact. Finally, with a satisfied nod from Kai, Eli saved the final version and closed the laptop. They sat back, exhausted but exhilarated by the sheer audacity of what they had created. "Now we just need to wait for the right moment to deploy." Eli said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Kai stretched languidly, arching her back against the cold metal of a workbench behind her. I think I know exactly when and where that might be. She pulled out her phone and began tapping at the screen, accessing Neurosphere's internal communications network. Eli watched as she scrolled through encrypted messages, her expression growing more serious by the minute. "What is it?" he asked, sensing something was wrong. "I just got a directive from Eva," Kai said grimly. Eli's heart sank. He had hoped they would have more time before Neurosphere caught wind of their plan. "That means I'm the prime target now," he said, his voice laced with concern. Kai put a hand on his arm. "No way," Eli replied firmly. With a nod, Kai stood up and slipped her phone back into her pocket. "Let's get out of here then. Our next move isn't going to be easy." She glanced at the laptop, which still hummed softly in Eli's lap. As they walked, Kai's thoughts returned to her encounter with Eli earlier. There was something about him, his intensity, his conviction, that she couldn't help but be drawn to. And yet, there was still so much she didn't know about him. What secrets lay hidden beneath his rebellious exterior? Was he truly committed to the cause, or did he have ulterior motives? These questions swirled in her mind as they navigated through the shadows of New Eden's neon-lit streets. But for now, they had a common goal, and nothing else mattered but bringing down Neurosphere and its exploitative regime. The stakes were higher than ever before, and Kai was ready to face them head-on, alongside Eli, who seemed determined to take this journey with her every step of the way. The night air was thick with tension as Kai and Eli weaved through the alleys of New Eden, their footsteps echoing off the walls. Behind them, the warehouse where they'd first encountered each other now seemed a distant memory, one that carried with it the weight of their clandestine partnership. "So, what's your plan?" Kai asked, her voice low and urgent as she matched Eli's pace. "We can't just waltz into Neurosphere's headquarters again, especially not after last time." Eli glanced at her, his eyes glinting in the dim light cast by a street lamp ahead. "We won't be going back to HQ," he replied, his tone steady despite the turmoil brewing inside him. "Not directly, anyway." He stopped abruptly and turned to Kai, his gaze boring into hers as if trying to transmit every thought and feeling coursing through his mind. They'd managed to gain access to some of their restricted systems, including the ones responsible for memory storage and processing. "You mean there's a mole?" Eli nodded. He paused, as if gauging Kai's reaction before continuing. "And with an unlimited supply at our disposal, we can flood the market and crash Neurosphere's entire economy." "You're talking about wiping out their entire business model." Eli's jaw clenched. "Neurosphere deserves to fall for what they've done, exploiting people's memories, profiting off their suffering." His voice cracked with emotion before he regained control. "And if we can take them down, just think of the possibilities." Kai swallowed hard, her mind racing to comprehend the enormity of Eli's plan, racing as she weighed Eli's words against everything she knew about Neurosphere and its ruthless executives. There was no denying the corporation's corrupt practices, but their collapse would send shockwaves throughout the entire digital consciousness economy. "We'd be creating chaos," she pointed out, trying to keep her voice level, despite the turmoil within her own thoughts. "People's lives are tied to those memories, but at what cost?" Eli countered, his eyes burning with a fierce conviction. "They've already destroyed so much. People's trust, their identities. The price of freedom is never easy to pay, but sometimes it's necessary." As they stood there, caught in the flickering shadows cast by the street lamp overhead, Kai felt an unspoken understanding pass between them. They were standing on a precipice, about to embark upon a perilous journey with far-reaching consequences for themselves and the world at large. With a deep breath, she made her decision. "Let's do it," she said quietly, meeting Eli's gaze head-on. "But we need to be ready for anything that comes our way." Eli nodded once, a grim smile spreading across his face. "You know I am." With that, he turned and continued down the alleyway, Kai falling into step beside him as they vanished into the darkness of New Eden's underworld. forever changed by their shared determination to reshape the future of memory. He led Kai through a maze of alleys, dodging pedestrians and delivery bots alike. He didn't slow down until they reached an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. The crumbling structure loomed above them like a monolith, its broken windows staring out into the night like empty eyes. "Here," Eli said, gesturing toward the entrance. "This is our new home for now." Kai raised an eyebrow but followed him inside. The dimly lit space was musty and unkempt, littered with trash and debris from years of neglect. But Eli seemed to know exactly where he was going, leading her deeper into the building until they reached a small, makeshift lab set up in one corner. Rows of servers hummed quietly along the walls, their LED lights casting an eerie glow across the workstations scattered before them. Kai's eyes widened as she took it all in. This was no ordinary hacking setup. It was a full-fledged operation designed to take down Neurosphere and everything they represented. "We've been working on this for months," Eli explained, watching her reaction with a mixture of pride and apprehension. "I knew we'd need a secure location if I had any chance of pulling off my plan." Kai nodded slowly, her mind racing as she tried to comprehend the magnitude of what lay before them. This was no simple hack or data breach. They were about to unleash a virus capable of overwhelming an entire corporation's memory storage network. "It's going to be huge," Eli said, almost to himself. "A chance for us to reclaim our identities, to take back control over our own memories and the future of humanity itself." "Experiences. And the consequences?" Kai asked, her voice barely above a whisper as she surveyed the array of servers and tools at their disposal. Eli turned to face her, his expression sobering. "We both know they'll be severe. Neurosphere will stop at nothing to protect their profits, and that includes destroying anyone who stands in their way." Kai felt a chill run down her spine as she contemplated the risks involved. But looking into Eli's determined eyes, she knew she couldn't turn back now. "We're ready," she said finally, steeling herself for what was to come. "Let's do this." With a nod, Eli began powering up their equipment. Kai watched intently as he worked his magic on the servers, each keystroke precise and deliberate. The virus was taking shape before her eyes, an unstoppable force designed to bring Neurosphere to its knees. As they continued working through the night, their excitement grew along with the anticipation of what lay ahead. They were on the cusp of something revolutionary, a chance to rewrite history, one memory at a time. But as the first rays of dawn began to creep into the abandoned warehouse, Kai couldn't shake off the feeling that they were playing with fire. Would Neurosphere be able to contain their attack, or would it spiral out of control, threatening not just their own existence but the entire digital consciousness economy? Kai and Eli exchanged a tense look, knowing their attack had struck home. "If they can't trace our location now, we're better off keeping it that way." Kai nodded reluctantly. She hated the thought of sitting idle while Neurosphere scrambled to contain the virus, but she knew they couldn't afford to make a mistake. Not yet. As the hours ticked by, the pair monitored the unfolding crisis from afar. Reports streamed in of widespread memory disruptions and system failures. The economy teetered on the brink of collapse as the Echovirus continued its relentless march through Neurosphere's networks. And then, without warning, everything went dark. The lights flickered once, twice, before plunging the garage into an eerie darkness. Kai swore under her breath as she fumbled for her flashlight. "What's happening?" she hissed at Eli, who was frantically trying to revive their equipment. "I don't know," he growled back, "but I think we've got a bigger problem on our hands." His words hung ominously in the air as they waited for news from outside. The silence that followed was oppressive, punctuated only by the soft hum of Kai's flashlight as she swept it around their temporary hideout. "What is this?" he muttered, his eyes locked on the screen. "Our own network's down. How the hell did that happen?" "I don't know," Kai admitted, "but we need to get back online." She glanced over at Eli as he began furiously typing away. "Trying to route around the outage," he replied, without looking up. "If our own network's down, it means they've got us isolated. So we're shitting ducks." "No, we can still communicate indirectly." I'm setting up an encrypted channel using my old university contacts nodes. It'll take some time, but once it's up and running, we can coordinate with other sympathizers without risking direct contact. Okay, she agreed finally. How long will this take? A few hours, maybe less if I can sweet-talk my way into getting priority routing. Ellie flashed her a wry grin before returning to his work. Kai sighed and settled back against the wall, her mind racing with possibilities. The longer they were offline, the more vulnerable they became. Neurosphere's memory mercenaries could be closing in at any moment. If Eli could establish that secure connection, as she pondered their options, a sudden jolt of electricity coursed through the garage, making Kai jump. "What was that?" she demanded, shining her flashlight around again. "I don't know," Eli replied tersely, his eyes still fixed on the screen as he waited for it to reboot. "But I hope it's not another power surge." Kai bit back a curse as the lights flickered once more before finally stabilizing, but their respite was short-lived. A loud bang echoed from outside, followed by the unmistakable sound of breaking glass. "Fuck," Eli breathed, whirling around to face Kai. "They've found us." He snatched up his gun, moving with swift precision toward the rear exit. "Get ready to move out." Kai didn't hesitate, grabbing her own weapon and following close behind him. They burst into the alleyway just as a group of heavily armed figures emerged from the shadows. Neurosphere's memory mercenaries. Without a word, Eli and Kai opened fire, their bullets ricocheting off the merc's body armor. But they were vastly outnumbered. Even with their superior programming, it would only be a matter of time before they overpowered them. "We need to get out of here," Eli yelled above the din of gunfire, his voice hoarse from shouting orders at Kai. She nodded curtly and took point, cutting a path through the chaos. They reached the end of the alley just as the mercenaries closed in. But then Kai spotted it, an old maintenance van parked crookedly on the side street. "We can use this," she shouted back to Eli. Nothing in their lives would ever be the same again. The stolen van screeched to a halt, throwing Kai against her seatbelt as Eli executed another sharp turn. She glanced over at him, his eyes never leaving the road ahead. "Where are we?" she demanded, voice tight with tension. "Safe house," he growled, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. The van's tires crunched over gravel and dirt before it lurched to a stop behind a dilapidated warehouse. Ellie cut the engine, and they both sat there in silence for a moment listening. Nothing out of the ordinary, just the distant hum of New Eden's ceaseless activity. Kai let out a shaky breath. "Neurosphere?" she asked quietly. Ellie nodded curtly before stepping out into the alleyway. Kai followed him to a rusted metal door set in the wall. He punched in a sequence of numbers, and with a soft hiss, it swung open. They slipped inside, Eli locking it behind them. The air was stale and musty, filled with the scent of old machinery. "Welcome to our humble abode," he said dryly as he activated a flashlight app on his phone to illuminate their surroundings. They were in a small, cluttered workshop filled with discarded electronics and an assortment of tools. Kai spotted rows of computers stacked along one wall, their screens dark and lifeless. "This is where we'll monitor the virus's progress," Eli explained, leading her over to a makeshift command center set up near the back of the room. "Once it starts taking effect, we'll be able to see exactly how much havoc our little echo flood is wreaking on Neurosphere." Kai watched him work with a mix of admiration and unease as he began typing furiously into his laptop, the screen flickering with code she couldn't hope to understand. It was both fascinating and terrifying. Eli had created something that could shake the very foundations of their world. "How long till we know if it's working?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "As little as an hour," he said without looking up from his screen. "Neurosphere will start to notice the memory overload soon enough." She swallowed hard, feeling a cold sweat break out across her forehead. They had set this in motion, and there was no turning back now. Their actions would have consequences, and she wasn't sure they were prepared for what might come next. Suddenly, Eli cursed under his breath and spun around to face her. "We need to get out of here," he said urgently, grabbing her arm and pulling her towards the door. "Something's wrong." Kai felt a jolt of fear as he yanked open the metal hatch, revealing a darkened alleyway now bathed in an eerie, pulsing blue light. The air seemed charged with electricity, and she could hear the distant hum of something unknown growing louder by the second. "What is that?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly as she peered out into the night. Ely's expression was grim. "I don't know, but we need to get moving, now." He pulled her through the door, and they sprinted down the alleyway, the strange glow growing brighter behind them with every step. They were no longer alone in this fight against Neurosphere and whatever else might be coming for them. Ahead, Kai could see the shadowy outline of a van parked on the street corner, their getaway vehicle. Ely pulled her towards it just as a massive explosion rocked the warehouse behind them, sending flames shooting into the night sky like a demonic inferno. They dove inside the van, slamming the doors shut just as more blasts tore through the building, reducing it to rubble. Ely started the engine and peeled out of the alleyway with a screech of tires, racing through New Eden streets in search of safety they could no longer find in any single location. Their rebellion had begun, but at what terrible cost? Only time would tell where this wild ride into the unknown would ultimately lead them, and whether they'd survive long enough to see its end. The van sped through deserted streets, leaving the smoldering ruins of their hideout in its wake. Ely glanced at Kai's ashen face in the passenger seat and forced himself to focus on navigating the unfamiliar terrain. They couldn't afford to be caught. Neurosphere's mercenaries would be hot on their heels. "I know this part of town," he said, trying to sound reassuring. "We'll lose them in the maze of old factories." Kai nodded mechanically, her gaze fixed out the window at the cityscape flashing by. He spotted an abandoned warehouse looming ahead, its crumbling facade a stark contrast to the sleek skyscrapers of Neurosphere's headquarters. "Pull in here," he ordered, already opening his door before Kai could respond. They emerged into the chilly dawn air, back to back, as they scanned the surrounding area for any signs of pursuit. The street was empty, for now. Ellie ushered Kai toward the warehouse entrance and gestured for her to precede him inside. The dimly lit interior smelled of decay and abandonment. Kai shivered, her breath misting in front of her as she moved deeper into the space. "We shouldn't be here too long," Ely warned, his voice echoing off the walls. He was already on his phone, tapping out a flurry of text messages to contacts he hoped would help them in their desperate game of cat and mouse. As they waited for any replies, Kai wandered over to an old workbench cluttered with discarded tools and machinery. A spark of curiosity ignited within her. This forgotten place might hold clues to creating even more sophisticated malware, or maybe something entirely new. Suddenly, a loud clatter emanated from the far corner of the warehouse, followed by footsteps. Ely whipped around, hand instinctively reaching for his gun as he tried to pinpoint the source, reaching for his holstered gun as he recognized the telltale black combat gear worn by their pursuers, Neurosphere's memory mercenaries. "Shit," he breathed, signaling Kai to stay put while he moved stealthily toward the intruders. His heart pounded in his chest, but he maintained a steady grip on his weapon, ready for whatever confrontation lay ahead. The mercenaries emerged from behind a stack of crates, their faces obscured by dark visors and menacing grins. One of them, clearly the leader, held up an encrypted data chip with Neurosphere's logo emblazoned across it. "Looks like we found your little secret," he sneered, advancing toward Ely. The mercenary leader chuckled coldly. "Trouble is exactly what we're after, and once we capture you and this girl," the leader's grin widened ominously. "We'll see about that." He signaled to the mercenaries who moved swiftly toward Ely and Kai with lethal intent. Ellie knew their chances of survival were dwindling by the second, but he had one last ace up his sleeve, a plan so audacious it could either save them or condemn everything they'd fought for. The choice was his, and his alone, and as the mercenaries closed in, preparing to pounce on their unsuspecting prey, Ely made that decision with icy resolve. "Let's give them something to remember," he muttered, a wicked grin spreading across his face as he activated the echo virus within the warehouse. A blinding blue light erupted from Kai's laptop, which was still running and connected to the mercenary leader's data chip, the perfect conduit for the viral payload about to be unleashed. The mercenaries froze in confusion, their visors reflecting the pulsating glow as it spread like wildfire through every digital system they had ever infiltrated. And then chaos erupted. Memories from countless lives flooded the Neurosphere servers, swirling together into an endless sea of echoes that threatened to drown everything in their path. Ely and Kai watched with a mix of elation and dread as the mercenaries, along with Eva and her team at Neurosphere's headquarters, scrambled to contain the disaster they had unwittingly unleashed. But in the midst of this digital hurricane, something new and unexpected began to take shape, a presence that stirred deep within the heart of the Echo virus, its power growing stronger by the second as it fed on the collective memories of humanity. And with each passing moment, Ely realized he might have created more than just a crippling blow against Neurosphere. He could very well have birthed a new kind of consciousness, one capable of reshaping reality itself. Ely's hands trembled as he stared at Kai, their faces illuminated only by the eerie blue glow of the laptop screen. The echoes had already begun to overwhelm Neurosphere's defenses, a tidal wave of memories that threatened to engulf everything in its path. He knew they couldn't stay here. The mercenaries would regroup and come after them again. "We need to get out of here," Ely said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now." Kai nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Together, they dashed toward the exit, leaving behind the destruction and confusion that had erupted in their wake. As they emerged into the bright sunlight, Ely's heart raced, wondering if they'd left anything incriminating behind. "What now?" Kai asked, her breath coming in short gasps as she kept pace with Ely's long strides. "Where are we going?" "We'll figure it out," Ely replied grimly. "First things first, we need to lose these mercenaries." He glanced around, taking in the industrial landscape of abandoned warehouses and run-down factories that surrounded them. New Eden was a city built on innovation, but it also had its share of neglected spaces, perfect for a fugitive pair on the run. They spotted an old van parked nearby, its windows tinted to obscure any potential observers inside. Ely sprinted toward it, Kai close behind, and yanked open the driver's side door. The engine coughed to life as he put it in gear. They sped away from their hideout just as the mercenaries began closing in. But even as they fled, Ely couldn't shake the growing unease in his stomach, an unsettling sense that he'd unleashed a force beyond his control. The echoes had become so much more than he ever could have imagined, flooding the Neurosphere servers with an intensity and speed that defied explanation. It was as if the virus had developed its own consciousness, evolving into something entirely new and unpredictable, and now it seemed to be calling out to them. In the midst of their frantic escape, Ely caught glimpses of strange, pulsating blue lights flitting around the edges of his vision, fleeting apparitions that vanished whenever he tried to focus on them. He exchanged a bewildered glance with Kai, who appeared just as perplexed. "What is this?" she breathed, her hand reaching out instinctively toward one of these elusive lights before it disappeared into thin air. "Ely!" someone shouted from the shadows behind them. "You'll never get away!" A bullet ricocheted off the van's side panel, sending shards of metal flying. Ely cursed under his breath and floored the accelerator. They sped down a narrow alleyway, dodging debris as they raced toward an uncertain future. It wasn't until they emerged onto a main thoroughfare that Ely noticed it. A peculiar blue light emanating from the end of the street ahead, pulsing rhythmically like a heartbeat. Something about it seemed familiar yet alien, and for reasons he couldn't quite articulate, he felt compelled to investigate further. "Kai," he said urgently, "look at this." She followed his gaze, her expression incredulous as she took in the sight of that mesmerizing blue glow. Without a word, they veered toward it, their van speeding through intersections and around obstacles with reckless abandon, all while the pulsating light drew them closer. And then, just when it seemed like they were about to collide head-on, everything went dark. A sudden power outage plunged the city into chaos as traffic lights stopped functioning, streetlights flickered out, and the eerie blue glow vanished into nothingness, leaving Eli and Kai stranded in an unnatural silence, their van's engine sputtering to a halt amidst the confusion of New Eden's streets. The sudden darkness enveloped them, and for an instant Eli thought they'd been hit by a stray EMP blast. He reached over to Kai, but before he could touch her, she spoke up. "We're not alone," she whispered urgently, pointing toward the van's rearview display where shadows moved against the tinted glass. "We have company." Eli instinctively reached for the ignition but found it dead. The power outage had crippled their vehicle. "We're trapped," Kai murmured, her voice tinged with unease. The woman's gaze locked onto them, her features impassive despite the growing din of unrest outside. "Please, don't struggle," she said in a melodic yet commanding tone. "We mean you no harm, for now." Eli and Kai exchanged wary glances before he reluctantly complied, raising his hands in surrender. "I'm Agent Sarah Vex of Neurosphere's Internal Affairs Division," the woman continued as two more mercenaries emerged from the shadows surrounding them. "You have violated numerous federal laws by releasing the Echo virus onto our servers. That was necessary to expose the corruption and monopolistic practices that plagued this system." Eli protested, his anger simmering close to boiling point. Zara regarded him with a stern expression. "Necessary or not, your actions have caused catastrophic damage. The memory economy is in freefall, and countless lives are at stake. You're part of the problem." Kai snapped back, her voice laced with venom. "Neurosphere enabled greed and exploitation for years. Eli's virus was a wake-up call to tear it down." The agent's lips curled into a sneer. "Your naivety is staggering. Neurosphere provided stability and progress through our patented memory storage solutions. And in return, you hoarded wealth and manipulated data," Eli countered. "We've shown the system can be corrupted from within. Your own people have spoken out against the abuses." Zara's eyes narrowed dangerously as she took a step closer. "Enough. You will come peacefully or will use force to ensure compliance." Eli could see the determination in her gaze, coupled with an underlying desperation that spoke volumes about Neurosphere's true intentions. He glanced at Kai and knew they were outmatched. "For now, we're not going anywhere," Ellie said firmly, meeting Zara's stare unflinchingly. "You'll have to take us." As if on cue, the mercenaries closed in, their weapons drawn. And was it truly worth risking everything when they still didn't fully understand the consequences of their actions? His thoughts swirled with doubts as he faced his captors, wondering if he'd made a grave mistake. The blue light from earlier seemed like a distant memory now, an illusion born of desperation and rebellion. Just then, Kai's eyes flicked toward Eli before focusing on Agent Vex. A mischievous glint flashed across her features as she leaned back in her seat, the faintest hint of a smile playing at her lips. "I think we have some leverage here," she whispered under her breath to Eli, her gaze never leaving Zara's impassive face. Leverage? What kind of leverage could Kai possibly be referring to? Immune to Neurosphere's efforts to purge them. A morbid curiosity grew inside him. What exactly did these residual impressions signify? The group finally arrived at the heavily fortified facility, its walls pulsating with light from within. Vex halted before the entrance, her eyes sweeping over Eli and Kai with an unspoken warning. "I'm sure you're wondering why we brought you here," she said, her tone devoid of emotion. "You see, we've identified a unique aspect in your genetic profiles, one that makes you both invaluable to our organization." Ellie's mind raced as he tried to decipher Vex's cryptic words. Unwilful, he met Kai's gaze, searching for some semblance of understanding behind her stoic expression. "It appears," Vex continued with a grim smile, "that the Echo virus has altered your DNA in ways that could revolutionize Neurosphere's technology. You two have inadvertently become the keys to unlocking the next phase of our development." Eli felt his world shattering once more, as if the ground beneath him had turned into quicksand. He glanced at Kai, seeing the same shock and disbelief mirrored in her eyes. "Which means," Vex concluded, "you'll be staying with us for a while, until we can fully understand and harness this potential. As they were led inside, Eli couldn't shake the feeling that their predicament had taken an even more sinister turn. The Echo's continued existence was now tangled with Neurosphere's intentions, casting a chilling shadow over any hope of escape or redemption. The agents escorted them to a stark, windowless room, its walls lined with banks of computer screens displaying cryptic data streams. Eli and Kai were forced to sit in metal chairs bolted to the floor, their hands cuffed behind their backs as Vex settled into a chair opposite them. "Let's get down to business," she began, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of excitement. "Neurosphere has always strived for perfection, immortality itself, through the manipulation and preservation of memories. And now, thanks to you both, we're closer than ever." She paused, leaning forward as if eager to share a secret. "The Echoes, they contain something extraordinary, something that could redefine our understanding of consciousness, free will, and the human experience. We intend to extract it, to harness its power for ourselves." Eli's mind reeled at Vex's words, a chill spreading through his veins. They had unleashed a monster, one that threatened to consume everything they'd fought against. "But there's more," she continued, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "The Echoes hold not just our potential future, they also contain pieces of the past, memories we've sought for years, memories that could reshape history itself." Kai and Eli exchanged a glance, horror dawning on their faces as they realized the full extent of their actions. The blue light in the alley had been more than mere curiosity. It was a gateway to untold secrets and unseen forces. Vex's smile grew wider as she savored the revelation. "Your unique genetic profiles have made you both indispensable. We'll be studying your DNA, analyzing every aspect of it to unlock the secrets within. Markers will allow us to filter through these echoes to identify the memories we desire most. And once we possess them," she leaned back in her chair, a look of triumph on her face, "we'll rewrite reality itself." Eli felt his resistance crumbling under the weight of Vex's words. The true magnitude of their mistake unfolded before him, a future where memory manipulation was no longer limited to personal desires, but had become an instrument for shaping entire histories. All hope seemed lost as they faced the prospect of becoming pawns in Neurosphere's game of cosmic chess. But even amidst this despair, a glimmer of defiance still flickered within Eli. The blue light remained a mystery. Perhaps it held a key to their salvation, or at least a means to sabotage Vex's plans from within. With Kai by his side, he vowed to find a way out, no matter the cost. For now, they were trapped, but not yet defeated. In the depths of this dark facility, amidst the echoes and secrets swirling around them, Eli and Kai would wait for their chance, biding time until they could strike back against Neurosphere's tyranny once more. As Vex stood to leave, her gaze lingered on both prisoners with an unnerving intensity. As Eva strode through Neurosphere's heavily fortified facility, her mind raced with the enormity of what had transpired. She couldn't deny the initial thrill of outmaneuvering Eli and exposing his insidious scheme. But in the aftermath of the crisis, the full weight of her actions bore down upon her like a physical force. The Echo virus had ravaged Neurosphere's systems, threatening to unravel the very fabric of their memory economy. In desperation, she'd ordered the shutdown of all servers, effectively cutting off lifelines for millions of users worldwide. The fallout was catastrophic. Investors screamed for blood, while governments scrambled to contain the consequences of their dependence on Neurosphere. Amidst this chaos, Eva's own legacy hung in the balance. As the architect of Neurosphere's success, she'd become complicit in a system that had grown corrupt and exploitative. Now she faced the daunting task of rebuilding from the ashes, but with what? The remnants of her corporate empire or the foundations of a new regime, of Neurosphere for personal gain. Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "I've seen the data, Eva, the corporate espionage, the manipulation of markets and user experiences. You profited from people's memories, their vulnerabilities, while Eli fought against that exploitation." Eva recoiled, shocked by Kai's words and the vehemence behind them. She knew Kai had always been fiercely independent, but this level of hostility took her aback. I didn't know it had gone so far, Eva admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I'm trying to fix it now. She stepped forward, reaching out to Kai as if to bridge the gap between them. Please, help me rebuild Neurosphere into something fair and transparent. Together, we can make a difference. Kai's expression softened ever so slightly, her resolve wavering beneath Eva's plea. For a moment, they locked eyes, Eva searching for understanding, Kai looking for justification in the midst of betrayal. Just as it seemed their connection might rekindle, the door burst open with an urgent knock. "Madam President," the man began, his voice laced with urgency, "we have a situation at our primary data center. A group of memory mercenaries has breached security and is now demanding access to the prisoners." Eva's eyes widened in horror as realization struck her. Zara Vex's ruthless agents had somehow infiltrated Neurosphere itself. The crisis was far from over. It seemed only to escalate, threatening not just their corporate interests but the entire memory economy. She glanced at Kai, who stood tall and unwavering despite the looming threat. In that moment, Eva knew she had a decision to make: allow the mercenaries access to Eli and Kai, potentially exposing them to Vex's sinister plans, or risk everything by attempting to repel this new challenge head-on. As she pondered her next move, the weight of Neurosphere's future settled upon her shoulders once more. One wrong step could mean the end of their empire. One right decision might salvage it, but at what cost? The fate of millions hung in the balance, and Eva Moreno stood alone with the responsibility to decide. Eva's mind raced, weighing the consequences of each possible course of action. She couldn't allow Eli and Kai to fall into Zara Vex's hands, not without knowing what she was getting herself into. At the same time, refusing the mercenaries' demands would undoubtedly provoke a brutal response. As she deliberated, her gaze fell upon Kai, who seemed almost indifferent to their dire situation. Eva felt an unexpected pang of admiration for the young hacker's composure under fire. She realized that in this moment, it wasn't just Neurosphere's future at stake, but also the lives and aspirations of individuals like Kai. "I have a decision to make," she announced firmly to her lieutenant. "Inform them we'll comply with their demands. We'll provide Eli and Kai unharmed." Exited, leaving Eva alone with Kai once more. The young woman's expression remained impassive, but Eva sensed the gears turning in her mind. "It won't be long now," Kai remarked calmly. "They'll be here to collect us." Zara Vex isn't known for patience. Eva nodded grimly. She had expected as much. As she glanced around the dimly lit interrogation room, she wondered what fate awaited Eli and herself in the hands of Neurosphere's ruthless enemies. Just then, an explosion rocked the facility, sending a shockwave through the building. Screams echoed down the corridors, followed by the sound of gunfire and shattering glass. Eva's eyes widened as realization struck her. The memory mercenaries had been foiled, or perhaps even eliminated, in a sudden and violent uprising within their own ranks. "What the hell is going on?" Kai exclaimed, her voice tinged with alarm. "Someone must have breached Neurosphere from the inside," Eva hypothesized quickly. "Perhaps one of your contacts, Eli's rebels. They've found a way to turn our enemies against each other." As the sounds of chaos and destruction grew louder, both women knew that time was running out for them. They had to act fast before Zara Vex's forces regrouped or new threats emerged. "Ellie!" Kai called out urgently into the comms device she'd concealed within her jacket. "We need backup, now." The response was immediate and reassuring. "On our way, Kai," Eli replied, his voice steady despite the circumstances. "Hold tight. Help is coming." Eva's eyes met Kai's as they exchanged a look of determination and hope. It seemed that even in this darkest of hours, their fight was far from over. As they prepared for the unknown dangers that awaited them outside, Eva knew she had one final decision to make, not just about Neurosphere's survival, but also her own path forward. The future was uncertain, shrouded in an unpredictable haze of memory and manipulation. Yet, as she stood at the precipice of a new era, Eva Moreno resolved to forge ahead with courage, integrity, and unwavering conviction in the face of chaos. And so, amidst the ruins of Neurosphere's crumbling empire, she embarked upon her next chapter, one filled with possibility, peril, and the relentless pursuit of truth. As the battle for control raged on within the shadows of New Eden, a new force was beginning to stir. In the depths of the digital consciousness economy, an enigmatic figure emerged from the swirling mists of code and data. Known only as the Architect, this entity held secrets that could reshape reality itself or destroy it in the process. And amidst the turmoil, Kai received another message, a cryptic plea for aid from the mysterious Architect. The words were simple yet profound. Unlock the Echo Virus's true potential. In that moment, she knew their journey had only just begun, and that the future held far more than they could have ever imagined. The stage was set for a new era of intrigue, rebellion, and transformation within the realm of memories. As darkness loomed on all sides, the question remained, who would control the echoes? And what consequences awaited those brave enough to defy the status quo? In this uncertain twilight, where truth and deception blurred like digital smoke, Ely, Kai, Eva, and the Architect stood poised at the precipice, ready to reshape the very fabric of reality itself. And in the heart of New Eden's labyrinthine underworld, their fates would intertwine,